The state legislature wrapped up its work on May 24th with little fanfare. Lawmakers hurried through a score of bills, including some last-minute measures to help tornado victims. In this excerpt from Oklahoma Forum, veteran Capitol reporters give us their thoughts on this legislative session.
We may have avoided some woolly boogers as well. Michael Cross mentioned the special conference committees that were formed. There were a number of them. One of them dealt with House Bill 1719, which Speaker Shannon said would have essentially rolled back Common Core. There was one created for House Bill 2154, which was the trooper pay raise that the House leadership promoted there at the end, but we never saw that language. And there were some others as well. So if we had actually seen bills come out of those committees, we could have had some rather interesting legislation to talk about.
And I think that trooper pay raise bill is worth mentioning when you talk about a little bit of a division between the House and the Senate, because the trooper pay raise bill was not part of the budget agreement. Governor Fallin has said consistently that she wants to do a broad-based study of state employee pay before implementing pay raises, and yet late in the waning days of the session, the House passes a trooper pay raise bill and sends it to the Senate. Well, Democrats cried foul and said, hey, you're playing political games with trooper pay raises. If there's no agreement, why are you passing the bill, giving hope to troopers that perhaps is false hope since there's no three-way agreement? And I just think that's one of the examples of perhaps a little bit of a fractured relationship between the House and the Senate that kind of got exposed in the final.
Posturing going on because the House Speaker issued that news release the night after the tornado hit Moore and said it was part of this tornado relief package that the Republican leaders have agreed to it. And as Sean mentioned, the governor had been very insistent and consistent as well that, you know, there's not going to be any pay raise till we have the study. It wasn't part of the budget, and this pay raise really caught people out of surprise. And the troopers were told also that the House was going to dig in hard on this, and they would not take up the $45 million disaster relief bill, which was a Senate bill. They said the House would not take that bill up unless the Senate took up the House trooper pay raise bill. Now, the House eventually passed that on a Thursday morning and didn't hold it hostage, but the troopers were told Thursday afternoon it was still going to happen. So the Speaker since has said that was never the intent. It was just that, you know, he kind of lumped it all, that they eventually will get some of that $45 million because it does go to state agencies and overtime. But for many observers of the Capitol, I think they saw it as some political posturing and put, you know, the governor and Senate President Pro Tem, how can you not be for a trooper pay raise? When you turn on a television set, if you're fortunate not to be sitting there with the tornado damage, and you turn on tornado damage, and there are the troopers out there in the rain and out there, and every tornado scene we had that last week, from Kearney all the way down to Moore, the troopers were there. And so how could people not be saying, hey, these guys deserve a raise? And of course, in the House floor, they brought up, how about these correctional officers? Because they're underpaid as well. So it goes back to what the governor was saying, where do you stop just picking one group or another?
And once again, there was $7.1 billion appropriated and no pay raises for state employees, teachers, correctional workers, state troopers, and so on.
Right. Now, I was thinking also that when we talked about, you asked about the last minute, there was so much time that spent on other things as well. But I think that the biggest problem was the time management. The Democrats brought that up. The House Democrats said the House was meeting at 10 o'clock every morning and then adjourning at 10:30, which usually they would come in, take a roll call, then they'd have to also go do a quorum call because no one was there, then adjourn for a 10:30 meeting and then come back at about 1 o'clock. Get out about 3 o'clock. They just weren't, I don't think they were managing their time well enough, and it snuck up on them in the last Thursday and Friday. They worked longer hours than they probably really needed to if they had worked a little bit harder